It's been a while. Hi, I'm Haley, if we haven't met yet, and this is my knitting channel. If we have met before, then you know I've abandoned this channel for about 8 months, and I'm not proud of it, but here I am trying to do better, and I will do better in the future. Surprisingly, I have 0 finished objects to show for my absence. I took a complete hiatus from fiber arts altogether. A lot was going on, a lot has happened. We moved for one, so that's why everything looks different. This is probably what we're going to be seeing for the foreseeable future. Or we're in transition to our final destination. This is kind of a temporary spot along the way, so there will be another move eventually, but probably not for another 6 months or so, maybe less, maybe more. So I'm just gonna kind of hop straight into things and go straight to the knitting, because if you are here for that type of content, and especially if you're new, there's no need to drag you through all the life stuff, and then I'll get back into that at the end for anyone who's interested. So before we moved at the end of August, and we used to live by my little brother. He's the only one in my family that has not received a blanket made by me yet. Sorry, Johnny, for the neglect, but I decided that I wanted to power out a blanket for him before we left, so I could give it to him in person. I really wanted to see his face and kind of surprise him a little bit. So I did knock that out, and I gave it to him before we moved. I don't have anything to hold right here, but I will have it on my Instagram if you're interested. In maybe a previous podcast, I had mentioned the forever fleece like this. This Bernat, like so bright because of the sun. Forever fleece finer. It's so soft. I actually love it a lot, and I did his in I think it was called like blueberry ice. It's similar to this, but blues instead of pinks. And so I just did simple 8 ring granny squares, and I joined as I went, and then I did a 2-row border because that was just my time constraint. I did 6 squares by 9 squares, and with those 2 rows for the border, that gave me about a 6 by 10 foot blanket. So it's really large. All my family members that I make blankets for, I just like to make them huge. I want it to be a blanket that they can reach for and kind of just drown in and get really cozy, versus kind of like a throw where it just covers like your legs. I feel like although it would be faster, it's not as worth the effort. Yeah, so let's get into the updates. I think for one, I was just kind of excited to not only learn how to knit, but also find a community. And then through the podcast and watching everyone else's podcasts, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do this, I want to do that, and I kind of had to reel it in. It also became really overwhelming, which was one of the factors of the super extended hiatus. I had so many projects, so many things I had gotten started, and just could not see a finish line for everything at once. I don't know why my brain works like that, but if I have 6 projects going, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't finish 6 projects. Even though I might be able to finish 1 project, I just see all 6 at once. So everything sat. If you're wondering like, oh, I wonder what happened to that piece, it sat. And it's probably tossed. I tossed everything. I tossed everything except for a couple of sock things we'll get into, but even my twist loop sweater, which I was so excited about, tossed. I don't know, it just became associated with like this anxiety and this like ick. I couldn't finish anything. I had to start fresh, and I also had to lighten my pantry as a whole because my pantry itself was getting overwhelming. I was just sitting on piles and piles of yarn and couldn't even see true plans for them. And I also realized that although a yarn has good reviews and a lot of people love it, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm gonna love it myself. So yeah, let's get into what I did keep. I kept majority of my knitting for Olive. I got rid of all my mohairs, all my cottons. So if it wasn't wool, it's probably gone. And I don't like mohair. I just had to be real with myself. Mohair is extremely itchy. It's not that cute. I don't like the look of it. I like the intention, you know. I like that it's supposed to make things fluffy and fuzzy and that vibe, but my fluffy fuzzy is not mohair. Mohair is fluffy fuzzy itchy, and I can't stand it. So instead of trying to rack my brain on what I could turn it into, I just tossed it and took a deep breath and moved on. So the knitting for Olive that I did keep is pretty much all currently being repurposed. So if you remember, I had these 6 skeins. This is the Pure Silk in Ballerina and Soft Peach. They're a very light pink, and this is called peach, but it's truly orange. But a light pink and a light orange. And I had started a camisole number 5 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I was holding them double as the pattern calls for, and they were making more of a solid color than a marled effect. And this is one of the first pieces I ever attempted to knit before I realized that I was knitting absolutely everything twisted. So once I learned that, I paused this because I couldn't figure out why it was turning out so tiny. It is ribbed, so it's always going to look smaller while you're making it versus like when it's been blocked and ready to wear. But this was super small, and eventually I learned it's because all the stitches were twisted. So I stopped. I took it off the needles. I put it in the bag to be unraveled one day, and it is still untouched, waiting. And I never saw a project that I liked until recently, which is the blouse number 1, and it is also 2 strands of the Knitting for Olive Pure Silk, also by My Favorite Things Knitwear. So yeah, if I remember correctly, it calls for the same yarn, and I think it also calls for three balls of each color. So if that's correct, that's what that's gonna go to, because I like the blouse number 1. I like it a little less when it's marled, so the fact that those 2 colors together make more of a solid color, I think it would work for me. I'm hoping. I also kept, they look different. I kept the 12 balls of Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino. I believe the colors are Natural White, Mole is this darkest shade, Piglet is a very warm beige. Next to all the other browns, it almost reads a little bit pinkish, if you're curious. And then this is oatmeal, I believe. So they were originally intended for a Winona polo, and then I realized the way that I knit, which is continental and combination. Combination just meaning my pearls sit the wrong direction. My pearl stitches sit the wrong direction on the needle, so when I purl, I have to purl through the back loop. That style and my natural tension, that yarn was really, really loose, and if I spent all that time on a either 3.5 or 4 millimeter, I don't remember, collared, oversized polo sweater, I didn't want it to be holey. This was swatching very, very holey, and you're supposed to use it like single stranded, I think, so I would end up having to double strand it, and then I would need more yarn. And then I realized I didn't actually want to make that large of a piece to begin with. I had to be honest with myself. I would love to wear it. I didn't want to make it that bad. So I've repurposed it into a gift for a friend, which I've gotten almost nowhere on. It's going to be kind of a oversized, off the shoulder like thing that you wear on top of a shirt. Also, she lives in LA, so if you're like, how is that gonna work? She lives in LA. And it was inspired by Bellina. So her Instagram is by.Bellina, 2 L's, I believe, and she calls it her summer sweater. She's done it in a lot of colors. She has a tutorial on YouTube that I'm roughly following, more for her rows, like the way she the stitches she chose for each row, than the construction itself. She did it in a front panel, a back panel, and then 2 sleeves. I was getting very overwhelmed by the amount of ends that you see constructing it that way, so I'm doing the body and the round, and then I'll just split for sleeves, similar to a bottom up knit garment. So that is going to be the new purpose of all of this cotton merino. I also realized that I just don't like this yarn very much. I don't like the twist. It's very splitty. The twist is very loose, and it's not very bouncy. It's just not for me. But I had so much of it that I needed to do something with it. So that's accounted for. I still have these, another 3 skeins each of the pure silk in dusty artichoke and cream that I honestly have no use for. I'm surprised they even made the cut, but they're so gorgeous, and for whatever reason I do like this yarn from Knitting for Olive. So I kept those, and I'm hoping I one day find something to do with them. I'm potentially thinking the new camisole number 9 by My Favorite Things Knitwear, because I think it calls for 1 strand, and I don't know if I could get it done in 3 skeins, but maybe if I did a striped version I would be able to use probably not all 6 but more than I'm using now, which is 0. But that's on like 3 and 2 millimeter needles. I think it's 3 for the body, 2 for the finishings. So again, in the spirit of being real with myself, I'm not going to sit here and say that I will definitely do that, because I probably won't. Last Knitting for Olive that made it through the move. I still have these. It's supposed to be 10, but I now have 9 because I left one in DC. Skeins of the heavy merino in oatmeal, in hazel. I lied. This is hazel. Now it's making me wonder if the other color was hazel, but I'm pretty sure it was mole. So these are 9 skeins of heavy merino, as I've already said, and I was originally going to turn it into a cardigan. The reason I never even started that cardigan was because I don't want to knit an entire project flat, no matter how much I love my mom. So I had to get over the hump of like disappointing her and realize that she would rather have something I made for her than nothing. So I picked out a new pattern for her, which is I believe it's still currently unnamed and unreleased. I'm just gonna double check real quick so that I don't lie to you. But it is by Olga Putano Designs on Instagram. She's Ukrainian. I've never knit one of her patterns. I've never seen her before I saw this pattern, but her posts and stuff say like help me name it, so I'm assuming it still doesn't have a name. And it is this top down crew neck pullover. It looks like it has a drop shoulder, possibly saddle shoulder type situation, so I will still have to work flat at some point in time, but you do eventually join in the round. You obviously work the sleeves in the round and stuff. There's no button placket or any of that. I mean, some people, if you like it, I love it. I don't love it for me though. And then it just has like, it's all rib, but I'll live. And it has the cutest little details, these little bit of cables on under the neckline, and then this at the cuffs of the sleeve. And I thought it was just so gorgeous, really timeless and not too crazy, because that's my mom's style. So I saw it and I was like, this is perfect for her. It calls for the same weight. This is something I would actually see myself accomplishing for her and something I'm excited about. So when that's released, that will get casted on. Oh, 3 hours ago it says coming later this week. So yay, I'm very excited about that one. Check it out if you're interested. She did it in the new Camellia Fibers Somme DK, which I want to do so bad, so bad. But I need to handle this before I start stockpiling. So I may make one for myself out of that yarn later in life. And then the final knitting for Olive that made it with us to Tennessee is my 6 balls of half and half. So 3 are merino, 3 are cotton merino, and if you're not new here, you know that my original intentions were the Rumble Raglan by Lydia Made It. Pretty sure that's her Instagram. It's gorgeous. It's stunning. And I realized what was truly holding me back from starting that project is the yarn. So it's made with fingering weight yarn. Knitting for Olive calls this a fingering weight yarn. The original pattern called for fingering sock yarn. If you're familiar, most hand-dyed fingering sock yarns are around the 420 meters per 100 grams. Knitting for Olive is 500 meters, which doesn't sound like a crazy difference, but if you know, you know. This is a thin fingering yarn. And it just doesn't work for me. My tension is already on the looser side. Even if I buy the exact same yarn that the pattern calls for, I always have to size down on my needles. That's just my life. And this wasn't gonna cut it. And then I was like, okay, if I hold it double, then I'll get a fabric that I like without having to go down to like, realistically, I would probably have to knit this on 1.5, even though I think it calls for 3. Yes, the ball band says 3mm needles. There's just no way in hell. It was never gonna happen for me. That would be mesh. So I was like, I'll hold it double and it'll work. And then I got like cotton merino companions because the yarn shop that I was with only had, this is what they had available. And I thought it was going to be like so great and fabulous, and then seeing the combos together in real life just kind of ruined it for me. The blue and the green combos specifically. The pink is cute. These were a cute duet. But as a trio, it just wasn't the vibes. It wasn't the vibes, and that's why it never got casted on. And again, in the spirit of being real with myself, I had to find something else to do, because I do like, I like the merino. It's just unrealistic for me personally. So I have the merino in ice blue, unicorn purple, and ballerina. And then I have the cotton merino in soft rose, which I went to try to get more of, and the cotton merino doesn't come in this color. My camera has its own mind, but cotton merino doesn't come in soft rose anymore. If you're curious, it does, the color does come in regular merino. And then I had soft aqua and rose mouse, which is under the pink section of the website. It's also called rose, so you would think it was pink. This is a gray purple. Don't let them fool you. So I've decided instead to cast on a little Monday Sweater Junior. I was originally thinking it would give like neutral vibes, but I have no idea why I thought that. Maybe because all the colors are muted. It's not. It's giving girl. So yeah, this is the ballerina and soft rose held double, one merino, one cotton merino, and it's on the 4mm that the pattern calls for. I find with things that I'm just trying to get done, I would rather size up my yarn than size down my needles. So that's why I'm holding this double. And the fabric's cool, but I honestly don't love it. I think it might be that the cotton merino is 70% cotton, so it's kind of a high cotton content, or maybe it's the fact that it's still a tad bit holey. I like really dense fabrics. I don't know what it is about it, but it is going to serve the purpose of getting this yarn out of my pantry. So, you know, I'm so happy with it, and it's such a mindless pattern. It was actually the pattern that got me back into knitting. The blanket for my brother helped me get out of the avoidance of all yarn entirely, and then the Monday Sweater Junior got me back into knitting specifically. So this is in the size 3 to 4 years. It's completely finished, ends woven. It just has not been blocked, partially because I made this for my son, who's 2, and right now it fits him perfectly oversized. Not too oversized that he's gonna like fumble with it and it'll be hanging off his hands and stuff, but just that it's comfy cozy. So I'm kind of leaving it as is for now, so that this fall he can start wearing it unblocked in this perfect size, because it is made out of 2 and some change skeins of the Suburban Stitchers sock yarn in Rorsex. Who knows? She probably knows. She named it. It is this beautiful white, like I would say a natural white as natural fibers go, with true black speckling, like not the chocolate brown, not the black that reads green. These are truly black, and the more faded speckles are gray. So I love that, because some speckling you get colors like dark browns, deep greens when it spreads out, if that makes sense. And I love that this was black and white through and through. I really wanted this to come to fruition as my structure loop sweater by Other Loops. This was going to be the body, and I was going to do the stripes in black. but I was kind of like planning for yarn chicken. So I was trying to find a yarn to hold double with it, which would have just been a pure white. I wasn't liking this swatch, so I was like, okay, I'll try a fluff. I don't like fluff. I just don't love to wear it, and it's an oversized 4mm sweater. So if I'm gonna do the work, I want to truly love it, and I honestly think I love this yarn in this way more. It's just so cute. And then I'm hoping when I do block it, or if I have to wash it this season, it'll be perfect size for next season, because superwash grows. This is 75-25, I believe, but super soft. Love it. Would get some more if it was available, but I bought the rest of what she had, and I haven't seen a restock since. So, but if she does restock, definitely getting a sweaters quantity for myself, and I would love to have matching, because I mean, come on, just came out so cute. The speckling is perfection. I held it double, and I did not alternate whatsoever, and I feel like as far as hand dyed yarns go, there's no like where you can see where you switch skeins and all that stuff. It's very, whatever the word is for spread out perfectly. So I also realized through making that because I will never be a helical knitter or a skein alternator, and I love hand dyed yarns, I think my new thing is just going to be buy sock yarn / fingering weight, like that type of weight, and hold it double, because holding it double really helps eliminate the, I don't know, swirling, whatever you want to call that. You know what I'm talking about. You get me. So yeah, that's my new plan. And speaking of that plan, I began to execute it with socks. And I know you're like, socks? That's a sock? Yes. I got over ambitious with the whole idea of a ergonomic toe, and I don't know, I took it too far. But these are socks. If you're like, that looks familiar, this is the Ching fiber sock yarn that I had made a flower knot sock out of, cabled on 2.25 held single. And honestly, the results color-wise were very similar. This yarn was great about not having any issues with the color, like matching up or just uniform, not looking as uniform. That's the word. So that wasn't the issue. The issue was that I don't want to put all that work into another sock. I'm like ambitiously lazy. So I was like, okay, now is the time to just try my hand at a DK weight sock. I think this held double might be closer to like Aran worsted, but I'm treating it as DK, and I love how dense this is. Like, you can see when it's tight. It's in there. You're not really getting whole action, even if you have to stretch it out. And I just love that for me so much. If I finish one sock, there is a 90% chance I will never finish that second sock. I've knit one complete pair of socks, which was partially because it was for a test knit, and then in completing the test knit for the second sock, I realized I wanted to do things a little differently. So although I have two socks, they don't even match each other. So I decided to cast on 2 at a time magic loop. And to try to hype myself up, I started on my interchangeable Chalgoose with the 3.25 millimeter on, I think, the 37 inch. cable, and I loved it. I liked it. As far as magic loop goes, I loved it and it was a dream, but I was still getting like boredom fatigue. So I ended up going with the Addy unicorn needles, which you've probably seen in a previous video because I did purchase them in the 2mm size and I have yet to use them on anything at all. I've never used those. These are the US version. My previous were German, and they printed the sizing and like cord information on the cable. And when I saw that, it honestly broke my heart because it's so ugly. It's so ugly. The cable's supposed to be pink and pretty, and it's the fun part about it. Why would they put all these black words on it? Especially since the same information is literally printed right here on the needle. I don't need to see it twice. So yeah, if you know how to erase that, I would love it. I think I'm going to try nail polish remover, but I have pure acetone and that doesn't play nice with all plastics and I don't want it to melt the cord. So I would like to take advice before experimenting. So yeah, I unraveled that sock. It is now these 2 at a time socks, and I don't love magic loop. I don't love 2 at a time, but I do love how far I've gotten and the thought of having a finished pair once I'm done. Like once something comes off these needles, it's both socks and I'm finished. So hopefully I can get a decent length. I'm using the same 100 grams. I unraveled it, like I said, and recaked it into this. And for the sake of, again, laziness, I just did 2 cakes of doubled. Like the cake itself is doubled. Because I didn't want to have to deal with 4 when you do 2 at a time. This gains. And I didn't want to have to undo 4. You know, you feel me? So that's the plan for that. I also brought this La Bien-Aimée, their BFL sock in the most stunning colorway ever. It was already stunning when it was a one strand cake, but in these two strand cakes, oh my gosh, scrumptious. This was also a toe-up sock that I had started single strand on 2.25mm. That has now been unraveled. You can see the little curlicues and will eventually become heavier weight socks. And then I also kept the punk rock unicorn. What is this called? That's not English. Soul. It's their Soul sock yarn. It's 8515 in the color Avocado Light, and this is still a strong contender for softest sock yarn I've ever felt. Depending on the day, it's this one or the Ching, which I think might have cashmere instead of nylon. I forgot what the composition is, but that stuff is so soft. It's so soft. So this made the cut. It's probably going to be the same as the other 2 DK weight socks. And then the scraps of the Test Knit, the favorite sweater, which I love. I love that pattern so much. I love what the socks look like, but I just couldn't figure out the sizing. Like, I knit it in what I thought my size should be, but the cables, you lose a lot of elasticity, and everyone I see wearing them is wearing them with the cables kind of taut and like stretched around the arch of the top of your foot where it starts to turn into your leg. Like, everyone's sock is kind of tight right there. Mine wasn't any different than everyone else's, but I didn't like that. So I think if I wanted it to look the way I would have to look, I might need to do it like a size or two up, and that's way more stitches and way more work. So most likely it's just not going to happen. But I did keep the scraps from those socks because both socks about crew length size only took 50 grams, I think, and this is about 50 right here. But I think I'm going to unravel those socks and do the same thing, turn it into DK. This was the, was this Suburban Stitcher? This might have been Suburban Stitcher as well, and it was in a February 2022 like color of the month. It was something about love. But it's these pinks with these true black speckles. And it's stunning and it's gorgeous and it knits up amazing single strand, so I'm hoping it'll only get even better double strand, but I am nervous that double these black bits might kind of take over a little bit. So yeah, that's that, and I think that is all of, no. I also kept this Miss Daisy? Miss Dab? Oh no! Miss something. Sock yarn, and I think they're local-ish. I think they're close to me, to where I live now in Tennessee, so I'm kind of sad that I forgot the name, but I know the skein was called, like, I guess I don't know. It was Wow something. This was that crazy, like 300 gram skein. One hank was like huge, massive. This has been multiple tees. I made a test knit tee out of it, and I honestly think this is the scraps from that test knit. I don't even think this is the test knit unraveled. I did try to make a second thing out of it. This is all I have left to show for it, and I don't remember where I was going with it. So this will be unraveled. It's in the color Garden Party, and it was just so gorgeous that I could not throw it away. So all of this will be turned into something someday, and you will see it here on Someday Knits. But until then, I'm just gonna enjoy what it looks like in a cake, because it's pretty regardless. So, chugging along, the twist loop sweater that I love so much and I was so excited for, I tossed it as is, and the reason was because the Malabrigo Susurro, which is all fibers, it's silk, linen, cotton, I think. Maybe there was a tiny bit of wool, but not much. It's predominantly like plant yarn, even though I don't think silk is considered a plant. The further I got in the body, the heavier the sweater got, and although the drape was amazing and the fit was amazing and the neckline looked so good, it was so scrumptious, I didn't want a cropped sweater, and for the sweater to be the length that it was just pulling so heavy on the shoulders, and I didn't love it. I also could not stand the experience of that yarn. If you knit relatively fast, I'm not super fast, but I am on the quicker side, you almost get like carpet burn on your finger. It kind of picks up heat a little bit, and it also has all this stuff, which I believe is like pieces of the linen, and also fluff. They just fly everywhere. It makes you sneeze, it gets in your nose, it gets all over your clothes, and it also comes out of the fabric. It's not just a knitting thing, like you have the same problem even as a finished object. And I was just really disappointed because as much as I loved it, I didn't like it equally. So it sat for a long time. I was forcing myself to try to work on it, and I just had to realize, as much as I love the pattern and I love the idea of the finished product, that exact finished product was not going to be for me. So it got tossed, and I'm questioning my plan moving forward because I must have a twist loop sweater in my closet. And I'm thinking two things. A while back, my husband, in November of 2022, it's almost November 2023, November of 2022, my amazing husband got me a gift card for a yarn store in downtown LA, and that was the beginning of my ick for everything yarn. I did not touch it until right before we moved in August, because I was like, I'm not gonna leave LA and just have all that money sitting there. And part of what I picked up is some simple Cascade Heritage sock, or is all Heritage sock yarn, but it's 75/25 superwash merino in the color 5756, and it's super soft. It is sock fingering, so I will have to hold it double, but it's in this gorgeous pink color, but it's a pink that has an internal purpley blue glow. It's not a purple, it's not a blue, but if you've ever seen this color in person, you know what I mean. It's not, if I held it next to a true pink, well, that's kind of orangey, but you can see the blue pulling out a little more now, if that makes sense. It's stunning. So they only had 4 left in the shop. I would need 2 more for a full sweater. I'm just debating whether I want to size down to 4mm and hold it double, or if I want to do the 4.5 that the pattern calls for and maybe add in some Fiber Space Cumulus or Drops brushed alpaca silk. Those fluffs I actually do like. I think it's the alpaca versus the merino. No, not merino, mohair. They're different animals, I think. I also picked up Heritage prints in this color, just because, again, I had a gift card, and at this point I was trying to get rid of it. So this will be held double into a sock one day. And then I picked up almost a sweater's quantity of the same Heritage in this gray 5755, which maybe storm sweater I'm thinking, because I think I could hold it double with no fluff on 4mm, which is what the pattern calls for. So I think that's going to be a storm sweater, but a storm sweater in a light blue, an icy light blue, sounds so much better, so I'm not positive. And then lastly, I picked up this Lana Grossa Cool Merino, which is a chainette merino in the color 006, because it felt so soft, and it is a solid-ish. It's a solid color, but it ebbs and flows ever so slightly. And I think this is more the vibes of a storm sweater, but the chainette might detract from the stitch pattern of that sweater. So I only got 1 ball just because I really wanted to see what it looked like knit up. And again, trying to get rid of the gift card. So I got all that on the gift card. And then as far as things left over that are still in my pantry, the blanket I mentioned before. I also have some Bernat velvet and baby velvet. The velvet is this color gray orchid, and the baby velvet is, I don't know, like pale periwinkle, maybe something like that. It's the light purple, and I am holding them together in yet another granny square join as you go blanket that I have gotten nowhere on. I'm doing this on an 8mm hook And I love this yarn so much for blankets, all of it. The baby velvet, the velvet plus. They make the coziest and also heaviest blankets, and they're heavy with amazing drape. So when you lay underneath them, they just like hug you so close instead of doing that like gap thing, you know, and you kind of got to tuck the blanket. Like, no, it'll just hug you and snuggle you, and it's the best. And this is more of a I need a breather type project. There's no timeline on it, there's no deadline, it's just for me. So it's something like when I get the ick, it pulls me out of it, and then I'll add a square every now and then. But right now I have the ick for this because I just did that granny square for my brother. I also think that the Forever Finer fleece in this raspberry ripple, I'm just gonna go ahead and turn it into a granny square because that linen stitch is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You can do linen stitch for hours and hours and hours and it looks like you got nowhere. It's single crochet skip stitch, and then you put the single crochets in the gaps of the skips that were in the previous row, so you don't gain a lot of height in each row. It's almost like doing slip stitch back and forth. And the size of blankets that I personally like, I'm never gonna finish that. I'm never gonna finish it. And the yarn is so soft and so great that I really want to wrap myself in it, but not if I have to do a linen stitch blanket. So expect to see a lot more granny squares. And I think that's about, oh. I have one more. So I am doing this. I call them car blankets. They're like my son, I'll just keep it in the trunk. It's not huge. It's just big enough to cover the car seat if it's cold outside in the winter. And I don't want him just back there freezing. So it's a little like baby blanket size, but not for a baby. Not necessarily for a baby. And it's just another one. This is part of the softy baby cotton that I had intended for, I think, like a bag or something. I don't know. And I'm holding it with the Lion brand Feels Like Butter in the color Pink Rose to make a second car blanket, which takes me to my camera died and I don't have my second battery, so things may look a little different. I had to wait for it to charge. But life, where have I been? What have I been doing? A lot. I had a baby. We had a baby. We had a beautiful, amazing daughter back in June. So that is the main reason for the extended hiatus. I found out I was pregnant in September-ish, so I think I had filmed a couple more podcasts and I maybe even posted one of them. But the strangest thing happened where yarn made me nauseous. It was like, and it wasn't even necessarily the smell of it or like the look of it. It was just the idea of the manual labor of crocheting and knitting that would make me sick to my stomach. And I didn't have morning sickness or food aversions. My only aversion was to work. If it sounded like work, no thank you. And for whatever reason, what to me is usually more on the play side, knitting and just yarn, fiber art in general, switched over to the work side while I was pregnant. And the thought of finishing all the whips that I had going on would make me sick to my stomach. It would make me want to throw up. And I've seen so many people knit throughout their pregnancies, and you know, it would make them so excited for the baby, and there was all these things they wanted to make and yada yada yada. Opposite. I didn't want to be anywhere near that craft closet my entire pregnancy, start to finish. And in doing so, everything surrounding it also gave me that same like woozy feeling. Podcasting, editing videos, posting on Instagram, and also what is there to talk about and post if I haven't made any progress on anything, because I haven't even walked in the room, you know what I mean? So it just didn't really make sense, and I thought of maybe announcing my hiatus, but no, it was just all too much for me to handle. I don't know why, and I'm sorry. I apologize. I can't explain it. I have no excuse. It's just, it is what it was, and that's what it will be. So I'm here now. I'm no longer pregnant. I'm feeling great. I'm super excited to you know, get back into things, and I think it would be best to do kind of like my fall plans and stuff in a separate video, because this is already insanely long. But yeah, I'm alive and well, and I have multiplied, and yeah, done with that. Back to the yarn. Happy to be here. If you've made it this far, thank you so much. If you know, if you've been here before, again, I appreciate you so much for not kicking me to the curb after I abandoned you, which was rude, and I apologize. And if you're new here, you don't even have to worry. I'm not going to treat you like that. I'm going to be so much better, and we're going to be besties. So if you feel like liking and subscribing, I'd really appreciate it. And I'm not going to be overly ambitious. I'm going to see y'all next month. I need a month to kind of do something. All I have is this all I have is this sweater to speak for 8-ish months of absence. So I'll see y'all next month with hopefully more to talk about. Not hopefully, I will have more to talk about. And in the meantime, in between time, I will be doing a fall plans video, because I do have plans. I just had way too much to talk about to really flesh out those plans in this video. So again, I appreciate you so much, and I am excited to see you next month, because I am now a committed content creator. Anyway, bye.